A boy in a box. 70 years of silence. A name finally clawed back from the dark. February 25th, 1957, Philadelphia. A college kid chasing rabbits stumbles into Fox Chase Woods and finds a cardboard box. Inside the box, a boy, 4 years old, naked, wrapped in a cheap flannel blanket. Beaten so badly, his face looked like wet clay. No name, no missing persons report, no mother screaming for him on any precinct desk in America. He becomes a ghost. They bury him under a stone that reads, "Heavenly Father, bless this unknown boy." For 65 years, every detective who touched the case died with that little face still burning behind their eyes. They knocked on 10,000 doors. They printed his picture on gas bills. Nothing. Until the science caught up. Until a strand of hair, a fragment of bone, and a database built for adopted strangers whispered a name back across 7 decades. Joseph Augustus Zarelli. But knowing his name, that was just the beginning. Because the question was never who he was. The question was, who did this? And why nobody, not one soul, ever came looking. Act 1. The Stain. A cardboard coffin in the woods, and a city that didn't want to look. Susquehanna Road, Fox Chase, the kind of woods where Philadelphia dumped what it didn't want to remember. A muskrat trapper named Frederick Bononis is the first. He sees the box on February 23rd. He keeps walking, doesn't want trouble, doesn't want cops sniffing through his traps. 2 days later, a college student, chasing a rabbit through brambles, sees it too. The box. A bassinet carton from JCPenney, soaked through with February rain. He lifts the lid. A small white arm, frozen, reaching up like the boy was still trying to climb out. The cops arrive within the hour. Sergeant Elmer Palmer, Captain David Scheuer, men who'd seen the war, seen the gutters of post-war Philly. Men who didn't flinch. They flinched. The body was naked, wrapped in a cheap flannel blanket, pale blue, plaid, store-bought. The boy weighed 30 pounds. He was malnourished, bruised everywhere. Old bruises layered under new ones, like rings on a tree of suffering. Somebody had cut his hair, recently, crudely. Tufts still clung to his body, like the killer had tried to clean him up post-mortem. Like a final sick act of grooming. His fingernails and toenails were trimmed, scrubbed, almost surgical. Whoever killed him wanted him found, but found clean. The medical examiner counted 7 distinct bruises on the head alone. Blunt force. The official cause, homicide by beating. But the body told a longer story. Scars on the ankle from some kind of medical procedure. A surgical scar on the chin. An L-shaped scar in the groin. Doctors had touched this boy. Hospitals had records of this boy. And yet, no record came forward. Ever. The cops did everything right. They printed 400,000 flyers, stuffed them into every gas bill in Philadelphia, plastered the morgue photo on the cover of the Philadelphia Inquirer. The face, eyes closed, skin gray, cleaned up for public consumption, stared out of every newsstand in America. And nobody came forward. Not a neighbor, not a teacher, not a milkman. Not a single person in 1957 America said, "I knew that little boy." Think about that. A 4-year-old child vanishes off the face of the earth, and the world, shrugs. How does a boy that age leave no footprint? No birthday card, no photograph in a relative's wallet, no baptism record matching the description? The detectives realized something cold, something that would haunt them for 65 years. This boy hadn't been hidden by his killer. He'd been hidden his whole short life. The trail wasn't cold. The trail had never existed. Act 2, The Shadows. 65 years of dead ends, false confessions, and a name that refused to surface. The case file grew and grew and grew. By 1960, it was the largest unsolved homicide file in Philadelphia PD history. By 1980, the largest in Pennsylvania. By 2000, one of the most investigated cold cases in American crime. And it had nothing. Detective Remington Bristow caught the case in '57 and never let go. He worked it off-duty, on weekends. He worked it through 3 marriages and 2 heart attacks. He died in 1993, still chasing the boy. Bristow followed a lead to a foster home 1.5 miles from the dump site. He believed, until his last breath, the boy had come from there. A girl, an unwed daughter of the family, had given birth in secret. The blanket matched. The bassinet matched the carton. But the family lawyered up, refused tests, refused interviews. The lead went cold. A psychic told the cops to look there. A psychic! That's how desperate they got. Then came the confessions. The wrong ones. 1960. A man walks into a station in Cincinnati, says he killed a boy in Philadelphia. Details don't match. Released. 1984. A woman called Martha comes forward, claims her abusive mother bought a boy on the black market, beat him to death in the bathtub for vomiting up baked beans, drove him to Fox Chase in the trunk of a Cadillac. The cops worked Martha's story for 2 years. Some details fit, most didn't. She was eventually deemed mentally unwell. The lead? Buried. Of course it was. Every decade brought a new theory, a new false hope, a new headline. The Vidocq Society, a private group of cold case detectives, adopted the case in 1998. Even they couldn't crack it. The grave was exhumed in 1998, then again in 2019. Each time, scientists pulled what they could from the bones. Each time, the technology wasn't quite there yet. Mitochondrial DNA, partial. Nuclear DNA, degraded. Y chromosome, incomplete fragments. The boy was talking. They just couldn't hear him yet. Meanwhile, the city changed. The detectives died. Sergeant Palmer, gone. Captain Scheuer, gone. Bristow, gone. Generations of Philly cops adopted the case like an inheritance, like a curse passed down with the badge. The boy's killer was almost certainly already dead, but the boy himself was still missing, even from his own grave. That was the rot at the center of it. They might solve who, they'd never get justice. The clock had run out before the science caught up. In 2019, they tried one last time. Pulled the bones, sent fragments to a lab in Texas, Othram, Inc., specialists in degraded DNA, the kind of work that wasn't possible 10 years earlier. They waited. And in the dark of a federal lab, 65 years of silence began, finally, to crack. Act 3. The Deviant. The blood spoke. The family lied. And what they were hiding was older than the crime. December 8th, 2022. a press conference at Philadelphia Police Headquarters. Commissioner Danielle Outlaw steps to the microphone. Her voice cracks. 65 years of cops, dead and living, are watching. She says the name out loud for the first time. Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born January 13, 1953, murdered sometime in February 1957. 4 years and 6 weeks old. He had a name. He had always had a name. Genetic genealogy did it. The same technique that caught the Golden State Killer. Othram pulled enough usable DNA from the boy's bones to build a profile. Cece Moore and her team built family trees from public databases, 23andMe, Ancestry, GEDmatch, and triangulated. The match was unmistakable. Joseph belonged to the Zarelli family of Philadelphia, a working-class clan with deep roots in the city's Italian Catholic neighborhoods. His birth certificate existed the whole time, filed at City Hall, sitting in a drawer, 20 miles from the woods where he froze. So why didn't the family come forward in 1957? Here's where it gets ugly. The cops won't release everything. Joseph has living half-siblings, and Pennsylvania law protects them. But what's been confirmed paints a portrait the noir doesn't blink at. His mother was young, unmarried at the time of his birth. The family lived in poverty. Joseph was, by all accounts, an unwanted child in a household that already had its hands full of secrets. He was rarely seen outside the house. Neighbors who lived next door for years never knew there was a fourth child inside that home. Think about that. A boy, hidden, in plain view, in a row house, in Philadelphia. He was a ghost before he was a body. Investigators believe, strongly, though officially unconfirmed, that Joseph was abused throughout his short life. The old bruises, the malnutrition, the surgical scars from procedures the family never claimed, the crude haircut after death. Somebody in that house treated him like a problem to be managed, then like a problem to be erased. When he died, they didn't call the police. They didn't call a priest. They put him in a JCPenney bassinet box, drove him 15 miles north to Fox Chase, dumped him in a thicket of brambles where the muskrats ran, and went back to dinner. The most disturbing part? When the morgue photos hit every newsstand in 1957, when his face stared out from the front page of every Philadelphia paper, somebody in that family looked at it, recognized him, and said nothing for 65 years. They watched the boy in the box become folklore. They watched detectives go gray chasing him. They watched investigators die, and they kept the secret. The killer, almost certainly a parent or close caretaker, died decades ago, took the rest of the truth into a cheap coffin somewhere in a Philadelphia cemetery, probably with flowers on the grave, probably mourned by the same hands that beat a 4-year-old to death. But the cops weren't done, not quite, because once they had the name, a few people in that family tree were still alive, and the science had one more door to kick down. Act 4. The Trap. A name pulled from bone, a family tree that screamed, a secret that survived everyone but the boy. The DNA didn't just give them Joseph, it gave them everyone. Once Othram's profile hit the genealogical databases, the Zarelli family tree unfolded like a roadmap. Aunts, uncles, cousins, half-siblings, each branch a potential witness, each leaf a potential suspect. Detectives started knocking on doors. quietly. No press, no leaks, just badges and questions. 65 years too late. Some relatives, the younger ones, were stunned. They had never heard of Joseph, never seen a photo. The hidden boy had been hidden from his own bloodline. Others reacted differently. One relative, when shown the morgue photo, reportedly went pale, said nothing for a long minute, then asked the detectives to leave. Another, older, frailer, wept, whispered something the cops haven't released. The Philadelphia PD won't name names. Living relatives have legal protections. The killer is dead. Prosecution is impossible. But the investigators have made it clear in carefully chosen words. They know who did it. They know who watched. They know who covered it up. They just can't say it out loud. But the boy, they could give back. December 2022, the headstone in Ivy Hill Cemetery, America's unknown child, gets a new inscription. Joseph Augustus Zarelli, beloved son, beloved boy. The dates added at last. A small ceremony, a handful of cops, retired and active, a few researchers from Othram, a priest. No family attends. Think about that. After 65 years of strangers tending his grave, strangers leaving toys, strangers leaving flowers, strangers writing letters to a child none of them knew, his actual blood relatives don't show. Some out of shame, some out of grief, some perhaps out of guilt. The investigation continues, technically. Detective Misty Felicio leads the modern team. They're still interviewing, still piecing together the final hours, still trying to understand the geography, how a 4-year-old got from a row house in South Philly to a thicket in Fox Chase. There were rumors of a mother's accomplice, a boyfriend, a man who allegedly helped move the body. He's been named in whispers, but not in courtrooms. He too is dead. The trap closed, but it closed on ghosts. The mother, investigators believe she was alive as recently as a few years before the identification. She lived a long life, married, had more children, carried Joseph's death like a stone in her pocket every day until her own. She never confessed, never asked for forgiveness, never visited the grave. She just outlived him by 60-something years. There's a particular cruelty in that. The killer of a 4-year-old gets to grow old, gets to bake cookies for grandchildren, gets a funeral with eulogies, while Joseph rotted in a box, then a morgue, then an unmarked grave, then a marked one, finally, with a name. When the press conference ended that December day, an old detective in the back of the room, retired 30 years, was crying. Somebody asked him why. He said, "Because we promised him." Promised him what? That somebody would come for him. Eventually. Somebody would. Somebody did. Just too late. Act 5. The Void. A boy with a name, a grave, and nobody to mourn him but strangers. What do you do with justice that arrives 65 years late? You hold a press conference. You update a headstone. You close a file with a thud that echoes through every cold case unit in America. And then you go home and you stare at the ceiling.
And you think about the 4-year-old who was beaten to death and dumped in a box, whose own family went on with their lives, whose mother ate breakfast every morning for 60 more years.
The system failed Joseph at every level. Failed him when neighbors didn't ask why they never saw a fourth child. Failed him when doctors performed procedures and didn't follow up. Failed him when teachers, somewhere, didn't notice he never enrolled. Failed him when 1950s social services didn't have the framework to protect hidden children. Failed him when his own kin chose silence over a small white coffin. And the killer paid nothing. Not a day in court, not a night in a cell, not a single uncomfortable moment of public shame. The killer died free, probably loved, probably surrounded. That's the part the noir refuses to dress up. Evil isn't always punished. Sometimes evil ages, retires, watches its grandchildren open Christmas presents, dies in a hospital bed with a chaplain holding its hand. Justice in this country runs on a clock, and Joseph's clock ran out before the science could catch up. What he should have had: birthdays, a first day of school, a bicycle, a bedroom with a door that locked from his side, not theirs. A mother who wrapped him in a blanket because she loved him, not because she was hiding the bruises. He had 4 years. Most of them, we believe, in a kind of hell most of us can't picture without flinching. And then a beating. And then a box. The strangers who adopted his memory, the cops, the researchers, the volunteers who left teddy bears at America's Unknown Child for decades, they were his real family. Funny thing, blood doesn't make family. Showing up does. His blood didn't show up. The strangers did. Detective Bristow's daughter spoke at the 2022 ceremony, said her father carried Joseph in his wallet for 40 years. A wallet-sized morgue photo. He'd take it out at dinners, at weddings. He'd say, "I haven't found him yet, but I will." He didn't. Not in his lifetime. But the chain held. Cop after cop, decade after decade, the file got passed forward. Nobody let it die. In the end, that's the only justice Joseph got. Not punishment, not closure, just refusal. Refusal to forget him. Refusal to file him under unsolved and walk away. It's a small justice, a cold one, the kind you can't put in a press release. But it's the only kind this case had left to give. Epilogue. A name returned, a reckoning denied, a grave that finally tells the truth. Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born January 13th, 1953, died February 1957. 4 years, 6 weeks, a whole human life compressed into the space between 2 indifferent dates. His grave in Ivy Hill Cemetery has a name now, real flowers, a few photos that strangers, still strangers, leave behind. The science that found him is being used now on hundreds of other unidentified children across America. Joseph cracked the door. Other ghosts are walking through. But he doesn't get to know that. He doesn't get to know any of it. He doesn't get to know that detectives wept for him, that a city carried him, that a nation eventually said his name. He only knew the 4 years he was given, and whatever happened in those rooms, he took with him. The noir doesn't lie. There is no happy ending here. There's a name on a stone. There's a file marked closed. There's a killer who got away with it for the entire length of a human life. And there's a small white arm reaching up out of a cardboard box
in a thicket in Fox Chase, still asking the only question that matters. Why didn't anyone come for me sooner?